Hello, my name is Nicole, and thank you so much for taking the time out to listen. Today we are talking about online dating communication warning signs. Online dating communication warning signs. Now, there are those signs that you look out for when you are out on a date with a person, when you find yourself really fond of him or her. You will just spend the necessary time getting to know that person. And part of getting to know that person is testing them on their reaction to things. Okay. In one message, I talked about subtle warning signs when dating, and I gave various fictional scenarios. And one particular individual was offended because one of the examples that I used talked about asking to use the date's vehicle. Now, of course, you would spend some time with the person and establish some kind of trust before you test them out on this particular request. But the point is that you're looking for the reaction, how people react to the things you say, the things that you do. And then this will give you a good idea what type of personality you're dealing with. So we're not just talking about your preferences, your interests, where you like to go and all of that. Okay. But we're talking about some serious things that are going to bring out the good, bad, and ugly in people. So when it comes to communicating over the internet, before you even go out with this person, you want to test them in that way too. So if I was interested in dating the person that had commented on my audio about subtle dating warning signs, and right away I noticed that he had about 2 paragraphs plus about the request in the fictional example about the car, and he's offended, and it's obvious that he is, it's safe to say that's someone who, if you're offended over a fictional example and it really hits home in terms of, your baby, how much you value your baby, your car, I might not want to pursue anything more with that person. You see, even though his intention may be just to protect himself, to look out for himself, what have you, that's a crazy request. But the point is that anytime somebody spends a lot of time talking about how they are very passionate about something material, but not so protective and passionate about having sex, I don't know how much they value their body over their material things. And I don't know if that's somebody who I would want to connect with, because who knows how many folks the individual has slept with or been around. But then, we don't make false assumptions. We get to know people. We get to find out more things. Okay. Until eventually they give you enough information, they hang themselves. And so you say, that's not somebody I would want to date. So in online communication, noticing the warning signs, you want to put some information out there that's going to challenge that person to think. So we're going beyond just, like I said, interest. We're doing things like, let's say the person, you ask them how was their day, and they give you a one-liner. Okay. And then you ask them another question, and once again, a one-liner. And then maybe you are a little bit more detailed in your questioning, and still a one-liner. It's safe to say this person isn't too fond of communicating over the internet. So maybe you say, okay, you know what? Let me just get this person's phone number, see if maybe they like to talk over the phone. And still you get the same result. Well, it's safe to say this person is not much on communication, okay? And that you most likely are going to be the one that's going to talk a lot, okay, in the relationship to get them to talk, okay? Another point that I would like to bring up is when people are communicating across the internet, sometimes they are not being honest. Okay. They're not being honest about their intentions. So you want to challenge them on some things. You want to bring up some controversial subjects like marriage and children, and test them out on their moral compass. So do you have a faith? When you are battling with issues, how do you deal with those issues? And I'm not talking about from the mind or body perspective, but from the spiritual perspective. And if they say, well, I haven't really thought about that, or, well, I'm not into God, if that's what you're asking, then it's safe to say that this is a person that they're going to be offended if you were to get into a serious relationship and start talking about prayer and church and all of that. So right away, you know that you're going to be unequally yoked with that person. And if you're a Christian, you know you're going against the scriptures. So if you continue to date that person, so it's just best to just cut your losses early. Let's say that you communicate about family issues, okay? And you talk about, oh, I just got into an argument with my sibling, and I'm just trying to work some things out, and the person doesn't offer to assist you or ask any further questions about your drama, okay? That is a person that most likely does not want to rock the boat in terms of asking questions about your family. They're probably guarded about their own family. So you might want to ask questions about how they see their family and how they have dealt with recent issues. And if they say things like, well, we don't have those kind of problems and all of that, later on, you just might have someone who's going to esteem his or her family above yours. They might even act a bit judgmental. So you test them out. You notice something that's a little bit odd, a little bit strange. You give them another question. You give them a follow-up to what they say. Let's say that the person, they've shown some signs that they're a bit dishonest. Okay, you find out early on that, well, I gave you a false name because I really didn't know you, or I changed my age because, well, and they give you some excuse. And then you start questioning them on their location, and they say, well, that was also false. And then you might ask them questions about not necessarily where they work, but in the area that they work or the industry. And then you find out, well, they weren't completely honest. It's safe to say this person is going to lie about some other things, okay, in the near future. They don't have a conscience when it comes to lying, okay? Maybe they may not be 100% open, right, with some things. Well, it's all about protection, but you don't have to tell lies about every single itty bitty thing. Okay. If you're only given a first name, why is it that you feel like you have to lie about your first name? Okay. If you, are not specific in terms of where you live, then why do you feel like you got to give a totally different state or city? I mean, some people, they just go over the top with their so-called protection of self. Sometimes it's just a matter of they have an agenda, and that agenda is to see what they can get from you. Okay. Sometimes these people have fake accounts, and they're just looking to swindle someone. So once you see that there's a pattern of lying, it's safe to say this person is not somebody who you can trust. And how about the individuals who, they're bold with their requests? They tell you up front, this is what I'm on here for. This is what I want. Okay, maybe it's a one night stand. Maybe it is money. Maybe it's a place to stay. After 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 exchanges of conversation, this is a person that's selfish. Okay, they are not just bold and direct, but they're selfish because they're not telling you what they're going to give you, right? Okay. What about the individual who is dishonest about the images that they put up? They're not being totally 100% transparent. They've got the hat on the head to hide the weird shaped skull, right? They've got a bunch of facial hair to hide things that are up underneath that bush, okay? Maybe they've got some enhancements going on in the picture, and then when you see them in person, well, the front isn't as big as it looks in the photo. Maybe they have some makeup that they put on to kind of darken their skin, and when you see them, they're really quite fair. Sometimes people will use various things to make their bodies look smaller than what they really are. Sometimes people will sit down in many of the photos so that you don't get to see how tall they really are or how short. So right there's deception that's taking place, okay? And when you request certain pictures that they take so that you can get a better look at who they are, they refuse. Okay, it's safe to say you're dealing with somebody who is going to be that one that's going to cover up some things, that's going to be secretive about other stuff too. Sometimes you have individuals that you come across on the internet that will not be transparent in answering questions. You'll get part of the truth, but you won't get all of the truth. Or they will kind of talk around what you asked, okay? Or you won't get what you're after you have asked them in 2 or 3 or 4 different ways. Okay, so once again, somebody's covering up somebody or something, I should say. Or they could be covering up the fact that they're in a relationship. If you ask them a lot of specific questions about what they do, who they know, how they spend their time when they're not at work. They may have even a pattern when they communicate with you. So there's a lot of subtle things that people do. And sometimes people will go back and forth in communication for a long time. There's a lot of things that you can assume. Sometimes, once again, they're in a relationship and they're not ready to break up. They're going back and forth for so long because they're very guarded. Do you really want to be in a relationship with a person who 10 months later you're still communicating via text or email or live chat? When they make excuses about coming to see you or making arrangements for you to see them, it's safe to say that they got something to hide. It's been 2-3 months and still I have yet to see you in person. You don't even want to Skype. So what's up? I mean, I want to video chat, or I want maybe some updated photographs, and you're just dragging your feet about them. Maybe you could be talking to a man. Okay, maybe once again, you could be talking to somebody who is married or somebody who's underage. So there's a lot that goes on in that communication with folks, and that's why you should spend more time setting up all sorts of fictional scenarios. If I was to meet you, what do you think we would do? Okay. What would you be expecting from me if we were to connect off the internet? What is your relationship like with your mother, with your father? Then you could talk about something very controversial that happened to you and see how they respond. If they're not showing sympathy, empathy, they're not trying to at least counsel you, it's safe to say this person is maybe not a compassionate individual, and they've got their own share of issues. You may want to bring up something to trigger them a little bit because you want to see, once again, how they react. So you might talk about something like, I love Hillary Clinton, or I love Trump. I'm in support of these things that Trump is doing right now, and then see what happens. Okay, see how they react. The more you bring out in a person, the more likely you're going to see how they deal with issues during challenging times. And if they're the cursing type and you know you're not the type that curses, or if they are using a bunch of exclamation points and capital letters when they are talking about something, it's safe to say they can be a bit emotional. If they are misspelling lots of words, I hate to be the one to say that maybe they don't have as much education as you, okay? Because sometimes people, their grammar, their spelling, they don't take the time out to check over things. That might show that they're a bit lazy too, a little bit nonchalant, if you will. You're trying to make a good impression on someone, so it would make sense not to just send them any letter, just any old letter. Would you do it if you were dealing with business ventures and so forth? So you want a good impression. You want to make a good one. Once again, those images say a whole lot. Check in the background of the photos. Is there a man's shoe? Is there a picture of that person in the background with another woman or man, and ask questions. Who is that person? If the picture comes off their profile really fast after you start questioning, they got something to hide, okay? Ask about their lifestyle. That'll give you a good indication of whether or not this person is broke, busted, and disgusted, and they're just putting on airs, showing images of their buddy's sports car, meanwhile it's not theirs, showing images of their home, but meanwhile it's their grandmother's home, you see. Ask some questions about how often do they visit their family. That'll give a good indication of what their relationship is really like. Sometimes people say, I'm close to their family, but if you haven't seen them in 2 or 3 years, come on now. How close are you really? People, they say a whole lot just to get what they want, okay? And if they know that you're a bit gullible, they're going to play into that. If you are the type of person that has one of those jobs where it's involving research or investigation, or you're dealing with the government and you can do background checks and so forth, the person may kind of go ghost on you if they know that they're up to no good. They may gradually distance themselves away from you a bit, okay? You don't want to run after people, chase after people, spend a lot of time trying to follow up what happened. They picked up on some things about you, and they don't want you to catch wind of who they really are, okay? So there's a lot said even when there's nothing said when it comes to online communication. I personally wrote a book, Too Much Too Soon, Internet Dating Blues. Please do check that book out, because too many people, they are rushing into these meetings with folks, and some of them unfortunately are getting hurt. Others are barely escaping from some dangerous people who say that they're a woman or a man, and they're really nothing more than a person who's out to do some really despicable acts on another human being. You got other folks who are just nothing more than pimps, hustlers, and players, and they're just looking for a good time on the expense of somebody else. You've got some folks who they are just not dateable in person. That's why they go on the internet. They know they got a lot of flaws in their personality, some quirks. Some of them have some body issues, and so they want someone to connect to, and they're going to go the internet route because they're just not going to be able to meet anyone in person that's going to take them seriously or be attracted to them in any way, shape, or form. And then you have individuals who they do lack some communication skills. People who are uneducated go on the internet seeking someone. Other people try to overcompensate for their lack by doing a lot of things for folks early on. Oh, sure, I'll send you some money. Sure, I'll help you out. Yes, I can, do this, that, and the other for you. Let's meet. And they're rushing into these things because they don't want you to find them out. They don't want you to find their weaknesses. Some of these people have undiagnosed mental illnesses. Others have some addictions, and others are on prescribed medicines with some serious side effects. So you want to test all of these different folks out and ask them the kind of questions that are bold. You can use examples of different family members and so forth to enter into a conversation. Oh, I have a cousin who's bipolar. Do you know anyone in your family who's bipolar? They might go ahead and say, yes, I'm bipolar, right? I know some folks that have gone through some very traumatic issues, including myself. There was some childhood abuse and so forth that took place. And then you can find out if this person has some unresolved issues with regard to childhood abuse, and you could be triggering them. Notice if their personality changes a bit through their communication. So as you get to know people, you are going to want to turn up the heat a bit. You're going to want to test them out. You're going to want to bring controversial issues to the forefront. This isn't about being on your best behavior. This is about potentially picking someone who could be your partner, sexually, a marriage partner. This could be someone who you might end up doing something and having an unwanted baby. You never know. This is why, for those of you all who are believers, we just cannot do what the world does. We just can't, because when we do what the world does, we end up drawing away from the Lord. We don't draw near. So when God tells you to trust in Him, even with a partner, that's what you should be doing. And you shouldn't be doing things in the way the world does it, which is about their flesh, appealing to what they see, what they hear, what they feel, what they taste, what they touch. You should be about what God wants, because God knows these people. He knows why these people are on the internet to begin with. He knows what their weaknesses are. He knows what's going to happen in the future. So it would make sense to draw near to an almighty, supernatural God who does some interesting things. He can give you some signs, some visions, some wonders, and so forth if you put that person's name on a list, if you will, okay? A prayer list. Get some saints praying for that person, and you're praying too, okay? And you'll get some results. I kid you not. And you'll find out once you go on that first date a whole lot about that person, and then you can pretty much determine whether or not you want to go on a second date. When I look back on my life, sometimes I've had moments where I just regretted going out on second, third, and fourth dates with people. Okay, because I can't say that God didn't tell me some things, because He did. But I went on and I dismissed truth, and I went on out with the lie. And when you go out with that lie, you reap the consequences sooner or later. And your heart just might be broken, because over time you start operating in a way where you don't guard your heart. And it's sad. So I thank you, as always, for taking the time out to listen to this message. Okay, be forewarned about that online communication with some folks. Test those spirits. Please do check the description box for anything that might be of interest. You've been listening to YouTube NM Enterprise 7. Subscribe today. And also, we do welcome donations. Feel free to use the link in the description box. Blessings to you.